transition.
I we're back to doing this the Alternative Blacks podcast live on YouTube when I make the transition and Chris is the first person to talk. It is one of my favorite moments in the beginning of an episode. So let's get this going. Welcome everybody to the Alternative Blacks Live. I am Tyler, and this is Chris. As the awkward intros just keep getting
Yes,
awkward.
he is I and I am him, but we are not each other.
It says somebody was in the chat. I can't see anything yet, so that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I haven't hopped on remotely.
Yeah, so I brought up the chat now on my screen so I can see things. So if you're in here, feel free. I should be able to see it, but who knows? Wide array of things to talk about, from the U.S. Open to going to a hop farm. Oof, there is a warning about my bitrate not being the greatest.
It wasn't for a second, but it looks okay now.
Okay.
It's recovered.
Yeah, we're gonna keep an eye on that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it does look like it recovered on my end too. But bear with us. It's been a minute, so
It has been.
So we'll talk about a bunch of different things. I'm excited to do that. But before we get into any of that, that's right, Chris. What you drinking?
All right. So, and this is kind of tangential into a quick discussion beer related that I want to have as well. I'm drinking Firktoberfest from Manafirkin Brewing.
Ah, sounds like a
And
Firkin good beer.
It's funny, they have their little chalkboard in the little the vestibule, as you like to call it, and it says, "Thanks for Firkin coming." Manafirkin is in Manahawkin, New Jersey, which is the town that's right over the Bay Bridge. I guess it's a bay. I don't know. Right over the bridge from Long Beach Island, New Jersey. So we were down there at the beach for a few days, and we hit this spot up on the way back. Little hole in the wall. You got a little sudsy on the stash there. So we picked up their Oktoberfest, and it's a pretty good one. It is a Marzen, which it's got to be a Marzen if it's going to be at an Oktoberfest. Fest beers, maybe I don't know if it's controversial or not, but it's got to be a Marzen for me if it's a Oktoberfest.
I recently
so this one.
I recently got a Marzen and a Fest beer, and I actually preferred the Fest beer, which was odd.
Ooh.
Yeah, but I think I was just looking for something a little lighter and crisper. So
okay, this guy's at 6%. As you could probably see if I hold it up, it's got the nice caramel Keller there.
Keller.
Manafirkin was cool. They had they had a lot of options. They had a few unique beers. Their brown ale was really good. We grabbed their white ale because we didn't try that to go as well, but also grabbed the Oktoberfest since it was sitting there. And I can't say no to an Oktoberfest. It's getting to be that time of year. But the reason I said this was tangentially related was because we also hit up Ship Bottom while we were out there. And very interesting spot. They're on a second floor of like a little touristy development, like beach touristy development, like with shops and little food spots and that type of thing. And they're on the second floor, like literally the brewery, the production area is up on this second floor as well. So they have the tap room to the left, brewery to the right. So it's kind of crazy. And from like the parking lot, you can look up and it's like open and you just see the vats
That's cool.
there. I guess because they're on a second floor, like to load off of a truck, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's taking up the stairs, the whole wall is just the door just slides open, I guess, and you can
Wow.
just like get stuff up there. It was really an interesting setup. But obviously we knew we've had ship bottom before. Ship bottom isn't new, but
Right.
first time being out at the place, they had a Mexican stout, which I might switch to later, which is amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
No shit.
It's like vanilla, cinnamon, a little bit of ancho chili. Really good. So that was like a really nice surprise from Ship Bottom. And then
Yeah.
we saw you had some Ship Bottom
Recently,
recent.
yeah. So Lynn Villa Orchards, which we got to get you down to this fall, their beer garden is hosted by Ship Bottom. So it's all Ship Bottom beers. Has been for the last couple of years that we've been going there. So we always get their. I think it's their Oktoberfest. We always get there.
So I
Um,
had the Oktoberfest.
yeah.
It's a fest beer.
Yes.
It was okay.
Yeah. Because I would have to say that like the options aren't I don't think as wide. They have the Imperial Pumpkin beer that's on draft is
Okay.
there as well. They have a hard donut cider sort of thing because that's what Linville is like known for is their like apple cider donut like stuff. Um,
Okay.
so I think those might be one offs there. They've done their like Ecto Cooler that they do the green beer. That's
All
there
right.
every once in a while. But for the most part, Oktoberfest is there. We're just gonna get it because it's just
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I believe Hannah from Love City used to brew for Ship Bottom.
Ah, okay. So that's a nice little connection there. I enjoyed the beer I had there. I think I had the fest beer. Alyssa had like a flight of different things. Their stuff's good. The what am I thinking of? The Imperial Pumpkin um had was just releasing, I think, the next day after we were there or something. So the Imperial Pumpkin wasn't available yet, I don't think, if I remember correctly. Or it might have been in cans and I didn't grab it, but I feel like I have to wait until Oktoberfest passes to really get into like the pumpkin stuff and the fall stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. If we had to build a guidelines, I would say let Oktoberfest live before getting into it because I mean it's what last week of September, first week of October. You still got so much time for pumpkin, like really up until just right before Christmas. So
Right. Yeah, you got all of November. You have most of October.
yeah, let it
Like,
live. Coming out in the summer and shit.
yeah,
What's your
even though
problem?
you've probably already gotten a pumpkin spice latte, so you've already
I
skipped.
haven't. I haven't yet. I should have my white girl card revoked.
You should. Have you even worn a vest yet?
Oh my gosh, I have a segue into a different conversation later. Having gotten into Reddit as of late, I blew up on Reddit because I called a woman white trash.
You're Reddit famous?
Not Reddit famous, but I will say my karma points went from 70 to 700.
And as a reminder of how I consume or consume slash participate in social media, my karma points are 61.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting time in my life there. I don't think it's for me. I don't think I want to get into it again. But it was fun. Just like
It's very echo chambery because of the way it's set up.
yeah, but I,
Is that-
I I think what I appreciate about it is like being able to identify like okay cool what everyone's not willing to say out in the open like of my peers especially since this was the Philly Reddit. I'm like thank you for
Mhm.
confirming the fear that I've had for a while about what my neighbors are actually thinking because this is very telling. I was like you don't mind this person going off about like praising Trump on this train and me thinking about will this white trash woman shut up? You are more concerned about my racist and hateful speech by calling this woman white trash. I'm like, this is very
Well,
telling. I'm like,
yeah,
we
well,
need to
Tyler,
we need to rethink what we call racist.
yeah, well, Tyler, Trump's never had a racist or hateful speech in his life, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think you're projecting.
yeah, definitely projecting. But what would you rate your beer before we get into what I'm drinking?
Yeah, I think I originally rated this maybe it was like a 3.754. Right now it's right closer to the four.
Okay.
Um, so I think right now it's probably still that 3.754 though overall. It's good, it's solid. I wouldn't be mad at a Oktoberfest to grab this beer and drink it, but I've had better.
I
But
hear
but
that. And there's so much so many different Oktoberfest and so many high quality ones that it's hard to rank them sometimes. I feel like yeah, there's an oversaturation of IPAs, but you know, the spectrum of what you get from that is a lot wider because of what is considered allowed to still be called an IPA versus
yeah,
when
it's
you're
not a
looking
traditional style.
yeah
It's not, and then like hops, like IPA doesn't mean specific hops, specific ingredients.
yeah like your
So
grain
you
build
can
doesn't
play,
have to be the same, you know.
yeah. So like that's why like I think I tend to, even though I love Marzens and I tend to I want to I like I'm harder I think on Marzens as a style because I enjoy them more.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm less likely to like completely overly critique a beer from a brewery if they didn't hit the mark in my mind with an Oktoberfest because a lot of people don't do lagers. A lot of people um, don't do these types of styles. I think you more so now you're seeing like a Pilsner on the menu, but like an Oktoberfest isn't a Pilsner at the
Yeah.
same time. So it's tough to nail, right? You gotta be honed in.
Yeah.
So I take that into consideration.
So with all of that being said, I am drinking an IPA. Um,
City, maybe?
no, it's Tired Hands, and I actually have a fairly decent segue into this anyway. Um,
Uh,
but I don't know if I brought
nice.
this one onto the episode yet. It's the
The censored version?
yeah, it's sexy. It's the double dry hop. It's a pineal, is what it's called. Pineal. Uh,
Pineal.
what?
Pineal.
Pineal.
Pineal. It's a
Double
gland in your brain.
yeah, double dry hopped India Pale Ale with honey. And it is very refreshing. Very well.
Is was this a can that we had at your place?
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
I don't
I
know if
was
I
like,
had it on the
it's
show,
taking
but I
notes.
yeah I shared it with you. Um,
Okay.
and it's a delicious beer. I thought it's very very refreshing.
Very refreshing.
I was
I
waiting to see if you agree or not.
so no, I'm trying to remember because that was a while back now.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that quite a bit. I think honey needs to be used in the right ways, but like a good honey beer
I
is like really good.
yeah, it was very interesting because I think what it does is it balances out some of that bitterness that is actually present in this beer. I think with a lot of Tired Hands juicy beers, you don't really get such a bitter aftertaste from it. But this one sort of does have like bitter, like piney, resiny uh, after notes. But that honey still lingers around and kind of balances it out. So it's not overwhelming, and I found it very refreshing. We got this originally when we were at their beer park, which is this weird thing near Linvilla as well. We had just come from Linvilla that time as well. Um, so I thought it would be worth sharing with people because we were on the hunt for other Oktoberfests in Philly. So we stopped at ARS, we stopped at Philly Brewing Company, and we stopped at Tired Hands because they're all like local. And
Mm.
nobody had an Oktoberfest, and I knew I had to grab a beer, so I grabbed this one because I saw it was available. Um,
Your thoughts on that?
what?
The lack of Oktoberfests
I think again
from
for
some of the
yeah, for what you said as well, some of these places just aren't doing beer that way. So I'm not shocked that Tired Hands doesn't have an Oktoberfest. I'm a little shocked that ARS doesn't
not
do one. I I would have expected ARS to potentially have one. Philly Brewing doesn't really. They have lagers, they have like saisons and stuff like that, but I don't think they necessarily go out of the box too often, and so I think that would be a little out of the box for them. So I wasn't really going there expecting that. I just wanted to go to Philly Brewing because that's where we watched the debate actually, uh, and really love that place there. They're good people. Um, but the reason I said that this beer was a good segue for other conversations. I would rate this about like a 4 or 5, by the way, because I'm very lenient now. Um, but
You're welcome.
yeah, I am drinking out of this glass, which is Von
Fawn Hill Hop Guard.
Hop Farm, which is the hop farm that Hannah and I went to do the hop harvest party. We got a chance to meet up with some people that we met during brunch, and in exchange for free labor, they give us beer and food and everything. And yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to jump into that conversation at all because it was a very unique experience.
But sure, yeah, I'm sure it was great. I would have loved to join you, but I was down for the count.
So you know where Paulo's Pizza is? What's that? 222 Business.
Yeah, right before it merges back into the highway
Right. So
222.
literally the last turn you can make after Paulo's, and before that, there's a
Little side
street. You
street.
turn, and there's a fucking hop farm
Just right there, like right behind Paolo's, like
right
that.
behind Paulo's. Like you turn, and then you see the hill go up, and you just see hops.
That's fucking crazy.
And so we turn, and we're like, "Oh, this is gonna be interesting." And having no idea of what to expect, I honestly, because of how well kept of a secret this has been, I remember seeing the initial like news report about a hop farm coming into the Berks County area, but nothing after that really. And so I was expecting for us to be like one of the very few people to go and help out that day. Now
Yeah.
it was pretty packed for a day that was raining and cold. There was a lot of people. We got our little bench to help pick. Like they had gone out ahead of time. They chopped off the vines and had piles for you to pick up, and then just go through and you kind of pluck them like they're your tomatoes or fruit or anything like that. You pick the good ones, you pop them in, and you put the bunch to the side, fill up a cart, put it on the like tray.
One in your pocket.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, no, but there. So that's the thing. That was the coolest thing about it. Was just like, yeah, have some of that. Go around, look at the different vines that we have. They have a couple different varieties. They don't switch it up because they're perennials. Like they just keep coming back,
Yeah.
right? So they have what they have. They haven't really switched it up too much. I think maybe once or twice they thought a hop was going to be more popular than it was, and it wasn't. So they switched to a more popular hop. Um, and so, but they're like,
Can you share which hops they were? Do you know, or are you allowed to say without
yeah.
being
I mean, if we went onto their website, they have them all listed. It's not a
um,
secret. Racow is what we were harvesting for actually Pagoda City. They were doing a wet hop with Racow, and so that gives you a more peppery, fruity. Like I almost call it like a peppery, fruity pebbles is what the
peppery fruity pebbles?
yeah.
Okay.
And so it's really cool because like you got this up close like really smell with it. Um, but they were very nice. They're like, you know, take a walk through, see it all. And we did, and they were like, yeah, like, could you tell the difference between this one and this one? And we're like, you know, I went up and smelled it, but it's hard to like smell it because it's, you know, I have all this on me. Like, oh no, you really don't smell it until like it's broken. I was just like, yeah, I'm not gonna go up and like break your hops. And
Yeah.
they're like, no, go up and take it off the vine. I was like, okay,
All
but
right.
yeah, they were very, you know, forthcoming with a lot
Accommodating.
of information. And the reason I was
Okay.
saying that this is a good segue from like the beer is because Tired Hands comes up and gets hops from them. That like they were very open about like who like
Really?
so Pagoda City was one, Tired Hands was another one. I'm blanking on a couple of the other ones that they said, but
As I recall, a few Philly locations,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Even Humble Parlor like knows who these guys are. Like they they're pretty
Isn't that
backordered.
crazy? Crazy. It's so crazy that there's something that is just like a really cool thing about Berks County, like the local Reading area. There you go. Like here you have these this couple that's just like hop farm, boom, right there. You know how many times I've driven past it and just none the wiser,
Right.
coming to and from Lancaster back to Reading, like
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So many times. Like I, as soon as we were when we were in the brunch, and as soon as they mentioned like about where it was, I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
Like
No fucking way.
it's no mistaking. It's crazy that something like that is just tucked right there, just right off the beaten path.
Yeah. And hopefully, you know, we were having a conversation with I think her name's Dawn. No, I'm terrible with names. Dawn, and having a conversation about everything and just like, you know, how much is like because we were by the freezer, we were talking about different things, and they were showing us one of like the frozen pack of hops, and we're just like, how much is like the hops, because they don't like make them into pellets. It's always going to be this like fresh.
Whole,
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
cone.
The whole cones, right? And they might be like shredded, but they're not like compressed and everything, right? Um, and she was just like, oh, you know, like, don't worry about it. Like, was there a specific hop that you like are interested in? I'm like, I honestly not a clue. Just like we just like want to play around. So like, what is the cost? And it was just like, oh, we're gonna figure out what we have left over afterwards, and we're like, we'll send you guys some. Don't worry. um, but I think this is what like goes to show it. Like with Fawn Hill, what I found very interesting is that they seem to be doing this purely out of the like love of doing it. I think there's many other things that they could be doing to make this business probably a little more profitable. But the thing is, they're organic, so they're not adding things to make the hops grow a different way or to like protect them in a certain capacity. Um, they don't do contracts, so it's all like pre-order based kind of stuff. Like you put in your order, and if like we have it when your order queues up, then you get it.
Right.
But it's not like, oh, we have a contract to get X amount of hops on a consistent basis, whatever. And even
Right.
in
It's like
the
one moment you fulfill it.
say that again.
Like you grow it and then you fulfill the contracts that you have,
Right,
right?
exactly. And
It's basically like once a year, basically almost.
yeah, and then like you know, they basically will bring somebody up and like talk about like what they have going on and what the expected growth will be, and like maybe a purchase order will be put in then. But outside of that, again, they're only talking about specific hops. They're not changing them. That, as I said earlier, um, and so I think what I found to be very candid about them too was I think they're very a welcoming and open environment. Like I was expecting when we're talking about, oh, we'll have food and like beer, I was expecting some pizzas. I was expecting like a 30 rack of Miller Lite or something like that. Like I really wasn't expecting 4 beers on tap. I wasn't expecting her to be making multiple lasagnas, like beef and like
Oh,
veggie, like charcuterie
they're like
trays.
cooking out of their own home basically for
Yeah,
everyone.
there's like a whole dining experience in their like
Wow.
garage that they outfitted for this. It was a really cool environment, and like somebody's camper was out front. One of the volunteers who like parked their camper out front because I guess they're like traveling across like like it's just a hodgepodge of people. And so we were having a conversation about the hops and like with like how do you like compensate for like this heat wave that we had. And they were saying, well, like the heat's a very like real thing, and because of not like wanting to pump in chemicals and all this other stuff, they had 8 weeks of extreme heat this summer that they just couldn't have even like tried to prepare for. And so they talk about like if you know a hot spell's coming, you water more. But then if something happens and that's not there anymore, and you overwatered, and there's no place for this water to really like go, and how that affects it, it goes from having like cones that could be like literally probably this long sometimes to like the more traditional cones that you see in like even in our branding, right? Um, and so the particular crop and the particular hop that we were harvesting this time, the cacao, wasn't as plentiful, like wasn't as big, wasn't like like you were going through a lot of these vines a lot quicker because there weren't as many on there, or some of them were just over, like just dried out already and like unusable. Um, but what Dawn was talking about too, she was just like, don't know what your like beliefs are or anything like that, but global warming is real, like, and that's
Yeah.
what like, we're just like, no, we get that, we get that, we just want to. So I think they would actually be a lot of fun now that they're going to be going into like kind of an off season as fall and winter approach, to like just kind of sit down since they potentially will have more time and just talk shop, because they were
Yeah.
very, they're just it it was like a carbon copy, or some of these people that we've sat down with and they just kind of threw up information for us, that it was kind of the same deal. So I'm very excited to maintain this relationship with them.
Yeah. I'm excited to experience it. We saw that they I think they may have mentioned it. I don't remember, but they do like the beer gardens as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like they just have things going on, as well as these picking things. But to hear all of that, it sounds like it was even more than what you could have hoped for
Yeah.
and expected out of it. Um, it just sounds like a really cool experience. It's another leg of the industry that a couple years ago we wouldn't even have thought of. Like clearly, it's a massive part of the craft industry in America.
Yeah.
Um, and now we're getting kind of that firsthand look into, sourcing.
Yeah.
So it's really cool and seeing that side of things.
And I mean, like, I would have to say what the experience being up close and personal to hops like that was,
Yeah,
especially in that like back. So it's funny, people were talking about how like you can tell the people that had been there before, they had brought gloves and stuff like that. So like, yeah, like depending on the hop and depending on like you're gonna get itchy, right? I was like,
true.
all
Because
right.
the resins and stuff, and the acid,
Yeah, and I was like, okay, okay, and like we were doing pretty good, and then towards the end, I was like, oh, I feel this now, but
started turning into Tyrone Biggums a
yeah,
little bit.
right. But what I would say about the difference between like working with like the dried hops that we have used versus like being up and close and personal to this is, you open up a new can of tennis balls and like say that can of tennis balls has been sitting for a while. It's like on the end of its life, even though it's pressurized. Like it's just been there for
Right, right.
fucking decades. And you open it and like what the can should sound like when you open it, and then this right, and you know what that
That smell,
overwhelming fresh smell should be, and you just get this faint whiff of tennis ball.
it's like an essence of it, like a
Right.
spritz.
But then you go and you open up the pack that just got sealed, or it's been sealed for a week, and everything, all the good stuff's actually like sat there for a while. I would say that would be the difference. Is the hops that we work with are pungent, like they smell great. You still like get that, but then you like literally crack and you see like the fucking pollen, essentially the yellow.
So it's just like more, it's like so overwhelmingly aromatic.
Maybe like a day and a half, 2 days, I could just go like this and still like
Wow.
it was beautiful. we
Crazy.
so then we were at Lynn Villa and like we're standing in line and we look over and Hannah goes, "Those are hops." And I look over and there's hops growing in like the flowers, like that little flower bed, and there's like some hops. So I just go over and I just go, I love the smell.
Oh, hops are, yeah, it's a wonderful crop.
Crop, yeah. Sorry, my thing's dropping again. I'm
Yeah,
back. It just dips out every once in a while.
yeah. Hops, I know like they can be a beast because they can like just kind of take over. If you have other plants, you have limited space. If you have other plants, I know like hop plants, like the vines, they'll just like any vine or something like it, they'll just kind of grow over anything. So you have to kind of keep it tame. Um, but it's a really cool plant. It's it's just fascinating, like the science and the biology behind like how all this works, why hops do what they do for beer, both with like antioxidant stuff, preservative stuff, like as well as the smell and the flavor. Um, I just finished the book last week on from that you gave me
Mm,
for Sierra Nevada.
yeah.
And they kind of talked about some of those things as well. So it's just like a really cool like timing with having this conversation. So I'm pumped to get out there eventually. Um, but I'm glad like Alternative Blacks was represented in the hop picking at a hop farm. That
It,
is a new like that's a new step.
yeah, it was something that I wasn't like thinking was gonna happen soon, or like wasn't even on my radar. And so like when it happened, it was pretty cool. Um, Trying to conserve some time and trying to figure out what's going on with my fucking internet because I think I made this worse than before. Um, let's move on to some of these other conversations. You went up to the U.S. Open.
US Open, really cool. We were out there for the quarterfinals last year. We were out there for day one of the quarterfinals. And we had ash seats for the day and night session that last year. This year, we went for 2 days. We just did one session in ash, and then we did like the full day pass in on the first day. Um, just because we didn't really, because you go into ash, you don't get to experience the rest of the grounds really.
Okay.
So we decided we'll just do the grounds pass for a day. We'll do it like an early session, like the day session the next day, and then we'll just, head back when we're ready, head back home. And it's cool. We were going around the grounds, like they have like an American Express fan experience thing that's really cool. That's available to everyone. They have the lounge that's for like the card holders only. And you could and we got like these custom tennis balls, which are really cool. Uh, but they also have like a tennis court in there, like a legit
I
tennis court,
fucking
and you can,
saw. I'm not
yeah, you
jealous.
just sign up and you get to go like hit for like 20 minutes at a time. It's free. You could go back in line and wait again. It's in groups, so like you could you could technically go there and just play all day. It was
Yeah, I
really
would do
cool. Like
that.
it was fun. It was completely. They had the top spin, the 2K, the 2K tennis, the top spin game.
No shit.
Um, there you could play. And then they had the tennis court, and the tennis court was really cool. Like you get like 20-ish people. You go on, you like kind of warm up. They have a backhand line and a forehand line, and then like they pair you into doubles, and then you kind of play like a king of the court situation
Oh,
with
you
the
know I
doubles.
love that.
So we actually the guy I was paired with, he was a really nice guy. He was kind of more of a beginner, but like just excited to be there. We actually got over, and we were the kings of the court for a couple of rounds, so that was pretty cool.
That's fucking dope.
Yeah,
Core
of course,
represent.
like the yes, of course you get these like really cheap Wilson rackets to use, and I was just like, these things are light as a feather, like they just there's no plow through. It's just terrible. But no, it
Totally.
was really fun. It's free, so it's really awesome. You take the kids uh, to it, and that was just really cool to kind of go around and then just go around the matches, go to grandstand, see some of the doubles. The double semis were happening, and
Okay.
that was just like walk on to it.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. Was just like being able to walk onto a like thing and just continue to play. I think that was
Yeah,
always
like
like
if we were to go again, I think maybe go to the earlier rounds where some of some of the main draw matches are happening on the outside court still.
yeah, and I
And
think that was my big takeaway. And that's I think the reason why I also didn't want to because we had spoken about going up Hannah and I, but like the days that made sense were like later in like the quarterfinals and everything as well. And I was just like, that's
you can watch from home at that point.
yeah. I was just like, what you're gonna miss is some of the like these like matches that will really open your eyes to like the level that's being played there. Now everybody that's playing there is 1,000 times better than me. That's not what I'm saying. It's but even the difference between some of the like the players that you're seeing then versus like if you got to see Coco on like a side court for some reason, right? Like that is light years of a difference, and just to be able to like recognize that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
I think
so
is really
that's
important.
that's why I think one of the coolest things we did was the practice. We followed the practice schedule and we hit the practice courts,
Those are
and
nice.
we got to see Sinner practicing. We got to see Sabalenka practicing. Um, we sat there because Tiafo was coming out, so we got to see Tiafo practice right in front of us. Really dope. Dimitrov, who he was playing in the quarterfinals, was
Ooh.
came out as well. Pagula was there. Just trying to think who else. Donald Young was
Oh,
supposed to be on. He was supposed to be on before Tiafo, but he wasn't there.
okay. Do we want to before I guess to carry this conversation on? Do we want to talk? I think the biggest part of this U.S. Open wasn't actually the finals. I think it was Taylor Fritz, Francis Tiafoe. If you're an American like tennis fan, that was the biggest thing. Um,
So
what are your thoughts on that match?
first off, I think the more exciting match was actually Tiafo Shelton,
Yeah,
just because of the history, because they
that was an
played
upset
last
for
year
Tiafoe.
quarter. So that the night match we were at last year was the quarterfinal Tiafo Shelton match that went to like midnight.
Yeah. Oh,
Nut.
that
That was nuts.
so the U.S. Open needs to figure it the fuck out because the fact that these matches go on to midnight on a consistent basis
It,
is
I
absolutely
don't,
insane.
so I don't get, especially once you get to quarterfinals and you know you're going to have essentially four singles matches throughout the entire day. You shouldn't be starting at noon and the last match is starting at like 10 at night.
Now,
That doesn't make any sense.
started at 10, started at 11, but give us a
Or have
chance.
less time in between. Like stop jamming things together. Like
Yeah,
I feel like once you get to those later rounds, the scheduling really shouldn't be that ridiculous.
yeah, I agree. But I
But
guess
anyway, like it's
yeah,
a momentous match, like you said, with Fritz and Tiafo. It was a really good and exciting match as well. I think Tiafo over the past like half year has like come back in a way and rebounded in a way that I hoped he was playing at last year at coming off of the US Open and going into the beginning of the year. I think mentally he wasn't there last year, and he kind of rocketed with some success in the major tournaments, and then kind of waned a little bit, but that kind of helped him rebound later in this year. And I think he's getting to a point now where I think he's kind of here to stay in that pushing for a top 10 spot
Yeah,
now.
I would argue that he's back. The reason I say that is because they were interviewing him and they were talking about, oh, who's the future of American tennis, and he was like, whoa, I'm still here. Like, he gave us like roses to Shelton, to some of these other players, but he was very much like, no, guys, I'm still one of those people that you should talk about as like the next potential champ. Um, and so it was hard to see that match, to watch that match, how it unfolded. I think he put up a good fight. I think there was a couple opportunities where he could have really sealed the deal, and he just needed to do it a little quicker. I think Fritz was a lot more fit and ready mentally for the match as well. And so to take nothing away from both of them, it panned out the way it was going to pan out. I think what was at stake was a lot different, and I think that what wasn't discussed on air as much. I felt like that, like the pressure on Tiafoe versus the pressure on Fritz is a lot different, because Fritz was like, oh, being the next American since Roddick to get into this finals and potentially win, versus the pressure of Tiafoe being like, yeah, okay, American tennis and win this. Yeah, there's still the Andy Roddick thing, but then to put the black element on it as well, and to be like, not since Arthur fucking Ashe has a black male tennis player win. So there was
I do think there's a lot of like the tennis community in general doesn't understand that pressure.
Yeah.
As a global sport and as a predominantly non-white sport,
right.
or predominantly white sport, it is like doubly removed from as a fan base from like the pressures of an African American or a Black American player.
Well, and then to have the like crazy reign that Serena had, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, well, Serena's been winning, like, so what are you talking about? I was just like, yeah, but that's a black woman, and as much as she is queen, we still need to be championing this guy too, and like on this side of things. And like, if it was the reverse, if you had like the Donald Youngs, if you had the James Blakes, and you had all these guys winning tournaments all of these years, and then you look over at Serena and be like, well, there's no added pressure there. It's just like, yeah, but it hasn't been since Althea Gibson.
Yeah. So exactly, it's the pressure's there. The pressure's definitely on. He's spoken about it as well, like that, maybe it's not spoken out loud a lot by media in the zeitgeist of tennis, but like there's that expectation, that underlying like pressure, that underlying tension, that you're representing an entire group of people in your country, just because you happen to be black.
Right.
So it's like this added pressure. Like Taylor Fritz is just, I'm an American and I'm playing.
There's I'm playing.
There's a bunch of others that are American and playing. But
my parents did this.
Yeah. His parents were players, were pro players too.
Like,
even Sheldon, like yes, he is half black, and he obviously he does present as black as we do,
Yeah, he looks like Blake Griffin's love child. Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah, he looks like if Blake Griffin and Pat Mahomes got together. But maybe not Pat Mahomes. Maybe what's his brother? Whatever his brother is, whoever his brother is, I forget what his name is. But
this
anyway, I think. But the dad was a pro tennis player.
Yeah, he was the coach for the collegiate team that Shelton plays on. Yeah.
So it's like Tiafoe has the American dream story,
He has the American Dream
and
story,
that story.
but he also has the initial American Dream pressure. Like I wasn't old
Exactly.
enough to like really hear like what was going on when James Blake was coming up, but I do remember getting magazines when Tiafo, because actually don't know how old Tiafo is. I think he's around our age, a little younger.
25. He's 25, I think, or
No shit.
26. He's pretty young. When he went pro, he's only like 18 or 17.
No, now I need to know. I need to know how old Francis Tiafo is.
He's younger than you think he is. Like we somehow think he's like 30. He's like in his mid 20s.
Okay, if your phone loads that data, like figure that out for me. But what I was gonna say is like I was old enough to see him like coming up and like everybody talking about the next great American tennis player.
Yeah.
And
Tiafoe's 26, by the way.
26. Okay. So no, that's crazy, right? So this is somebody that like I actually got to like see someone 26, so he's essentially 6 years younger than me, give or take, you know, like what's it called, 5. But he's had this pressure more so than I think any other player has. I don't think even Coco Gauff had the amount of like pressure of, oh, we've identified you as this young next up and coming player even
Yeah,
before
like
getting onto the pro.
she did have some pressure, but it's like
She
she
had some
had
pressure because of
pressure
her early
because
success.
she had pressure of early success, but also she was taking on the Williams sisters' legacy, but that legacy didn't have decades long drought
Right.
behind it.
But
That's the difference.
I
Serena was
remember,
still playing.
and maybe it was because I didn't get magazines the way that I used to about tennis and everything that I didn't see it. But like as on the circuit, like on the junior circuit, they were like, this is the next great American player. Like he is going to carry American tennis forward. And that I didn't think was fair, especially because up until recently, he was still going up against the big three.
Yeah, like you see some of those early matches against like Federer and Nadal, and like Federer is just like beating him off the
But
court,
didn't
and
he
it's just
win a
like
crazy Federer match?
uh he beat Nadal.
That was
He
it.
beat the U.S. Open a couple of years
Yeah.
ago before he went against Alcaraz. And Fritz has also beaten Nadal as well. So it's like you have like this young talent. But once again, it's just kind of like there's the pressure of being American
Well, the
that like
pressure
Fritz
being
might face, but then you have the added pressure of, hey, here's a black American, and that's a whole different ball game.
speaking of ball games, which one do you want to transition to next? Baseball or
Um,
football?
let's transition to a quick bathroom break, and then
Okay.
transition to football
Football?
for a change. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you the bathroom break. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
you probably can't see it because I chose a dark beer, but it is the honey deuce glass.
Nice. I'd already hit transition, so the nice, nice dark beer and the honey deuce. What are you drinking, Chris?
The Mexican stout that I came, what's the word? Not prefaced. I prefaced the conversation earlier about this beer.
Yeah,
Foreshadowed.
there you go.
Uh,
Foreshadowed.
Mexican stout, 9%, brewed with coffee chocolates, ancho chili peppers, ancho chipotle peppers, cinnamon, lactose, vanilla bean.
Look, there's the
Easily good.
Abraxas. It's Perennials Abraxas Imperial Stout that they put out. Fire. Every year it's fire. I get excited whenever I see it, and I never have the heart to like try to age that shit. I just fucking open it. Like it's so good.
You just have to age one, just one.
Yep. I have we did recently buy one beer. It's from there's like a fermentary like the blendery place in Kutztown, almost like right across from Felino's. And we went up
Yeah.
there. They have some like pretty funky stuff. It because of its natural fermentation, it doesn't get as carbonated, I feel, as some of the other places. And I think they're probably doing it more accurately than some of the other fermentaries that I've been to, because of that. But so we did get one bottle, and like the whole idea of this place is to have their beers aged for decades. So we're aging it until Hannah turns 40.
That's the goal.
Yeah. But let's talk about the footballs. We're into a new season. And
Yeah.
what's
Cool,
the
yeah.
first takes?
The Eagles are suspect at best. I quite enjoy the Steelers. I feel like it's. I feel like I watched parts of both Steelers games
Hmm.
just because of those time slots, and it's just one of those like quintessential Steeler teams. Except like for the first time in some years, there's actually like some type of potential in the offense.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just kind of like intriguing to me because I'm not a specifically a Steelers fan, but I like watching the Steelers win, like especially in that division. The Bengals annoy me.
Fuck
The
them.
Browns are the
Fuck them.
Browns.
Especially with
I
Deshaun
don't I
Watson.
don't
Fuck them.
the Ravens. Yeah, I know you hate that I don't mind the Ravens, but
I don't
the
mind
Ravens
the
and the Steelers.
Ravens. Let us not be playing the Ravens. I like the Ravens. Like, let's be fucking obvious. I even like murderous Ray Lewis. So
Don't forget Jamal Lewis. Don't forget Jamal Lewis. The Lewises.
the Luai.
The, is it Lewis or Louise?
I enjoy
Uh,
them.
no, I do enjoy watching the Steelers win, mostly because of Tomlin being the head coach, and just doing the job that he's done for the years he's done, and just the way that, from an organizational standpoint, look like an A1 organization. So I do enjoy the Steelers winning. Uh, I think they have more bright spots in terms of the way that they're playing right now versus like the Eagles who have all this talent, and we we come up short based on like this decision that was made, and we have some huge holes in our defense
Yeah.
that are causing issues. You know, obviously we lost that game. Saquon drops that gimme pass, but why are we throwing the ball on second and whatever, third and whatever?
Why are you throwing the
And
pass? Why didn't you go for the field goal early on? If the field goal was kicked, it wasn't the same situation. Like, so
it's one of the so here's my whole thing is our new offensive coordinator used to be the Cowboys offensive coordinator. a few years ago, and the whole thing was that he didn't run the ball enough, and that's always been the Eagles' annoyance up until a few years ago. And then that offensive coordinator, the year we won the Super Bowl, we ran the ball a lot,
Yeah.
and like a year or so afterwards. But it's like feed Saquon the ball. That first drive, he ran for like 30 yards in the first drive.
He was
Then he got like 3 carries the rest of the first half.
one. If you would give him the ball, I would have won we would have won our fantasy that week. Because we lost by 15 points with somebody on our starting lineup that got injured right away and scored 0 points. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Just give the guy the ball.
He's a
On like
monster.
get off to him. Stop. Like yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
Eagles frustrating, Steelers intriguing.
intriguing. I would say intriguing at best. It's still early, um, uh, on both fronts. Um,
Sure.
I think the Steelers are doing some things that do feel traditional for Steelers, like, and that's kind of fun to watch. It's fun to finally have like a quarterback situation where it doesn't feel like it's such a divisive and like controversial, like, or like fan base splitting thing where it's just like, oh, this person should be starting or this person should be starting, right? I feel like both quarterbacks are truly there for the best potential outcome, and it's not like them wishing that the other person, one, doesn't get healthy or doesn't have success. And I think that's
I
actually,
agree with us 100%, yeah.
I think that's really intriguing. What I love about the Eagles so far is that through everything that I've been watching, there's been not even a fucking inkling of a like want to have a conversation about Kenny Pickett.
Well, that's because you guys buried the lead on that. You guys clearly showed that he is a letdown. So he's riding Pine pretty nicely. And Jalen Hurts played very well in both
Both
games.
games,
Um,
scary
like
well.
yeah, like he clear like you could tell that he was clearly hurt last year by the way he's playing right now. He's running more confidently. He seems a little more comfortable in the pocket. I actually thought that switching back to the Steelers, Justin Fields looked fairly good in the pocket. Um, I'm just thinking, right now it kind of looks a little that guys are still trying to figure each other out, I
Yeah.
think, and obviously it was a quarterback like competition in training camp, but really everyone was expecting Russell Wilson to be the starter.
Yes.
And so how much time did Fields really get with the starters to practice? I think he's still working through some of those things as well.
Mm.
So I just think you can't get worse than the quarterback play since like the year before Ben retired.
Right.
Like that year up until last year has been some of the worst quarterback play I've seen
And
out of
that's
a team that's been good.
and that's why honestly, like, so Ben was recently quoted as saying like, Russell gets healthy, you keep Fields playing, and I just wish Ben would shut the fuck up, because I think you just said it too. It's like the offense is clearly like built out to have Russ playing. That was the
Yeah.
idea. And I still think that I think what's promising is that Justin Fields showed up and produced in some capacity, or led is probably a better term than produced. Uh, and I
He's
think,
getting better than Caleb Williams. So
yeah, and I think that's telling. And I think, one, I don't think Steelers fans were really looking at the season to be productive at all in any way. And so, like, this 2-0 start's actually, like, already leaps and bounds better than what we were kind of, like, expecting. But two,
always 2-0.
I think it is a testament to, again, quarterbacks both having, like, this, like, clear cut, like, yeah, Russell will probably be the starter and probably be leading this team. Fields will be kind of like getting snaps and being able to see what it's like to have
Yeah.
a quality person like that ahead of him that's willing to like actually work with them as well to create what is probably going to be a dynasty. I don't see there being any reason so far this season. I know it's early that Justin Fields should have to leave anytime soon for the Steelers.
No.
There's no sign of that.
I we've talked about, I think we might have talked about this when the moves were made. But I saw Russell Wilson as the now solution and Justin Fields as the long game solution, with Justin Fields being able to see the now solution in action. Like, sure, Russell's looked rough his past couple of years, but at the same time,
Still Russell.
he's had success. He knows how to prepare. He's had success in the league, so he clearly knows he's clearly capable of it. And if he can impart any of that onto Justin Fields in any capacity, because the one thing that Justin Fields, for all his struggles, you can't really put a lot of that blame on him because of how terrible the situation he was in. You can't really judge him off of that. So I feel like this is like a nice fresh start. He's in a completely supportive environment, and it's just like, hey, just go out and play. You have no expectations.
Right. I,
Just
I
play.
I think what like to actually bring this conversation to like an alternative blacks like platform here, right? Is the whole point of like DEI or like the whole point of like see yourself and believe that you can do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually I think what the Steelers ended up creating here was a very important chamber of diversity, really, and like it's you have this black quarterback who has had success, and you're able to see that, and so like you're able to put past and future together and have that like kind of like work and like you there is this like commonality and this grounds of speaking. Like I don't think if Justin Fields would have been brought in at the same time as Ben, that would you have the same sort of like okay, here is this torch that's being passed on to you, and like here's how this is going to work. Because I do believe Ben's philosophy on things and Justin Fields' philosophy on things would not mesh well.
Listen, Ben's a legend in Pittsburgh for the way he played. He's a shit person, like off the field.
Yeah.
And I don't value really anything he says that isn't strictly X's and O's
Exactly. So
to me. So there's that.
all right.
I think it's a good system. So
Yeah, I think that's great. Let's take a look. We talked U.S. Open. We're in a really interesting part of baseball. I think we will have many more conversations about baseball in the weeks to come. So maybe we can just yeah, we can look past
let's
there.
take for that because playoffs are imminent.
Yes.
And for the Phillies, that's the portion that I actually care about.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, but it was a great season.
Because
like let's be honest, this is a great season.
Yeah.
And I mean that
it was a great season. Go ahead.
It's a great season for baseball in general. The fact of the matter that like the Phillies aren't like clinching anything currently, like the Brewers did last night, right? I think is a testament to how close like baseball is currently right now. Like it's an incredible season in terms of like successful baseball like franchises. So amazing.
Yeah,
it's been fun to watch.
I feel like the longer time goes on with any league, the more parity there is generally.
Yeah.
Like even like the dynasties, like you think like in football, Patriots dynasty as being like one of those like overarching dynasties. Like even then, they had years where they were struggling. They had games where they were struggling. Even the seasons where they went like 13-3. They
16-0.
won a lot of the games by a score, and it was like struggling.
Sorry. 16-0.
Yeah, yeah, 16-0 and then losing. But that's the thing. Like, it's not like like everyone's a professional, and
Yeah.
because of the way training is now, because of the way development is now, because of they're getting younger and younger with prepping people to get some of this pro level type these pro level type skills and knowledge, that I think the longer we go on, the more that the
So
margins are just going to
yeah,
continue to get tighter.
to discuss that real quick, I know we didn't want to get too close on MLB, and we were kind of wrapping up on football. You
Mhm.
you did mention the Bears quarterback, the Bears, recently, but it was very interesting to see like his how he got to where he is currently, right? Where it was I was like, I think it was a receiver or running back, and decided that he wanted more control of the game, which is a very tennis mentality. And then his dad put together a game plan, and they followed it through, and now they're here. I think that is what happens now. That is like you go back and forth over the years of, oh, you should only be playing one sport, or oh, you should be like playing multiple sports, back to, oh, you should like really just have this sport and go forward. um, I think you're right. Like you have these people that identify a game plan from early on. Here's our playbook. We're gonna like run with it, and this is what it's going to take to be successful. And there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot of things to break down in there. I think that's actually like a really good conversation for an episode. But yeah, I think you're right. Like this would. I think for a long time we saw sports like, oh, everyone's getting bigger, stronger, faster. Like these records are just gonna be broken, broken, broken. And now I think you're right. It's going to be like, yeah, you hold the record for a day, and then it gets broken again, and then maybe you reclaim it again. It's gonna be like NASCAR.
Because yeah, in terms of like individual feats, it's going to just be like edging out. But then in terms of like dominance over the field, I feel like that's going to get less and less until like there's only like one person in a generation who's going to be able to dominate over the field, just because the field just keeps getting better. Like
There's
20 years ago, you wouldn't take the field over any star player. Now it's just like on any given Sunday, the star player could be really good and the team could still lose by 40 like
right.
points. Like it's just like the parity is
Yeah.
crazy.
There's
So
a reason why like the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, the Kareems were and still are those people, right? Like
yeah.
fuck how you feel about Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a fucking anomaly. Like he's
Yeah, he would have been, and maybe he wouldn't have been what he was if he wasn't in New England, but he would have been an all-time great regardless, just because he had like the mental side of it, right?
yeah,
It's just like you cater to those things and you make things happen for you. People like these guys are resourceful no matter what, no matter where you drop them into time
yeah.
in that
They were going to
era
be an
with
insane
their
success.
inherent skill set, they would have just been good. So
It's the players that just eat the competition, like just literally eat the
right.
competition
So
up.
aside from like those crazy people, the stars and stuff are going to be like fantasy football is just going to continue to be like more and more gray in terms of who to start, who to sit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's fun to watch as a sports fan, and it's fun to follow as a sports fan.
Speaking of following
But
as a sports fan, 76ers have been trying to kind of strong arm the city over the last couple of months. They aren't happy with their current contract with Comcast and the Wells Fargo Center, and so they're looking for a way out. With that was a bid to move into Center City, which has been met with a lot of opposition, especially within the city and the city residents. The proposal, while not being directly into uh, Chinatown proper, the exact location would cast a literal and figurative shadow into Chinatown's neighborhood, which is a cultural hub that is unlike many other Chinatowns throughout our nation. And so, with that being said, earlier this week, Mayor Cheryl Parker announced officially her backing of the plan to move the city, the 76ers, to Center City. Tell me how you feel about all of this. Hold on.
I
That
strongly
was a
dislike it.
great transition. That was one of the best things I've ever done.
That was a great transition. I was sitting back in awe as you transitioned us. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like sporting venues directly in the downtown area. Like I know it's not like on City Hall, sure, but like
It's not that far. I
you're like
guarantee you could
you're,
see
you're
it
like
from that place.
it's like a 10 minute, yeah, it was like you're a 10 minute walk from like from Reading Terminal Market, right? It's like right there.
No, that's less than
You're
10
in,
minutes.
like you're there, you're right there, and the logistical issues that are going to occur because of this, like it's one thing for those sporting venues that were always there in that downtown area, and then the town built around it, and in so doing have always accommodated that space. But to like implant all of that into what was never meant to be built around a professional sporting arena, not to mention all the other things that it's going to host that aren't sports related, concerts and that type of thing that happen. Um, it's just going to be a nightmare, I think. It obviously attendant, like it's not going to affect the the Sixers at all in terms of attendance or anything. But it's just there's something about having like a sports complex that isn't right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, I was shocked by the capacity. I think it's like 18,500. Like I think is the capacity. And I thought that was kind of low.
Like the new place is going to be that, or
Yeah,
that's what Wells Fargo
I
is.
think that's the new place.
See, it's just like it's going to look nice and pretty. It's going to be cool looking, but it's like I like to me, it's the traffic, and Philly's already awful with
It's awful.
traffic.
So you have the Christmas Village that's there. So the Christmas Village runs essentially a month and services about 900,000 people throughout that whole month, right? And during that time, the traffic is fucking insane. And you have cops there directing traffic, but basically just cops there. Not actually directing traffic, they're just there. They're not actually moving anybody in or out or anyway. And it's impossible to move. You may stand in the same place for an hour. And you're saying that you want to do that on a consistent basis for an entire 76ers thing. And they're like, well, there's public transportation and that there's going to be a parking garage. It's like, yeah, but the city wasn't meant for there to be that amount of parking there in the first place. There was also a study done that said 40% of people would still drive. Another 40% would do public transportation. But within that 40% public transportation means bus is also street level traffic. So you're automatically saying, okay, whatever, even if I put a percentage, so say 1% gets moved over, that's 41%. And then 10% would also be part of the rideshare community to get there. So you're already saying that over half, 51%, on a consistent basis going in down there is going to be traffic in an area that can't handle it, doesn't know. Your only type of sign or like display is going to be to say, here is the stadium, not here is parking for the stadium, which was essentially synonymous when you were going to the Wells Fargo Center. If you're going to the Wells Fargo Center, you're going to the center and the parking.
Yeah, yeah, you that's the thing about the sports complex. it took all of the logistical challenges of a city out of it. It's like technically you're in the city still, but you're on the edge. You bypass all of that. The city is not affected, and you are not affected by the city. Like there's easy public transportation to the spot. Why
Yeah.
does it have to be downtown? It doesn't make any sense. You don't go downtown. You don't go downtown unless you were already there.
There's no reason to go downtown.
There's no
Cheryl
reason.
Parker wants people to be downtown so bad, but the people that have to be downtown for work don't even want to be downtown.
It's so
I
stressful
should
being down
know.
there. You, you would know. I know too. It's awful being down there. When I was down there for Ricky's med school graduation, which was at the convention center right down there,
Right.
where did I park? I parked a block from Love City and then walked through Chinatown to get to the convention center. It's it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then the burden, and we haven't even touched the burden that it's going to place on this community. Here you have a community, you have a minority community, and you are now encroaching on them as much as you're encroaching on all of the other city life. So you have all of this happening at the same time, and I just don't see what's the point of moving down there so that people can go to the bar
But
afterwards
what
and
bar?
walking
Where are you
distance.
actually going to? Like, yes, you and I went to some of these Center City bars when we were younger and when we were fresh out of college and trying to see what like Philadelphia had to offer. But now, when's the last time I said, "Hey, we need to go to this bar in Center City"?
No, it's like the logistics of that just sound crazy awful to me. Like I just don't I don't get it. So poo poo all around 76ers. I am not impressed. You have your practice facility in fucking Camden, but now you want to burden Center City, Philly with your play. I don't understand it.
No, it doesn't make sense. And to put it on top of there, they originally put out a study, and I think around 50%, 51% of Philadelphia that was studied and surveyed was against the initial move down there. And then they did an impact study, and after the impact study and people reading the impact study, the number jumped from 51 to 69% disapproval rating. Cheryl Parker went out
Yeah.
and said, "I've heard you, and I made the decision to keep the Sixers here. This is going to be a better, cleaner, greener Philadelphia," because that's her whole thing. Better, cleaner, greener, or whatever. Safer, whatever. It it's woefully inaccurate. It's there is a lot of issues at play here. There's a safety concern. Schools are being shut down. The Eagles have to. Jalen Hurts has to privately. I'm sorry, privately fund putting air conditioners into these schools, and yet we're pumping millions, billions of dollars into a potential stadium when there's other things that need to be funded and take a more pressing issue. It's the wrong sign. Um, I wanted to support this woman. I she was not my vote for mayor. But I wanted to hope and I wanted to believe that she was going to do good things. And time in, time out, she has shown that she is not for what the city actually wants, even after hearing publicly from the city, having these numbers in front of her. She
You
still
you
has
hear
not met with
70%.
Save. There's a Save Chinatown coalition. She has not met with them, even since making this announcement.
Even not even there, like 70% of the people disapprove of this happening. Like that is overwhelming. And shoot, I had another point. Um, dang, I had a point. You were talking about you were talking about wanting like you wanted to support what she was saying. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to
oh,
support. You got it?
I got it. I got it. Like, so we're talking about just the impact of the arena happening, but then we're talking about this is like this has like the potential to do the double whammy of being in like a not necessarily residential area, but still somehow gentrifying a cultural area
Right,
and a
exactly.
community of people. So now, like, you're going to encroach onto Chinatown. What are you doing to drive business to them without pulling pulling foot traffic away, pulling visitors away, make inconveniencing all of like some things like deliveries and
Hmm.
that sort of thing to the businesses in Chinatown.
So actually, this traffic impact study, and like it basically said, like there is a way for traffic not to be an issue, but there you have to follow a very specific course, and that course includes the parking that is the closest to the stadium has to be priced higher than the parking that is further away in order to encourage people to park further away. But what that also does is the regular people that would be potentially parking there in the first place to frequent those shops in that community are now being outpriced potentially from that. And so that is the encroaching element. They want to say, oh, we're not in Chinatown proper, we're in Marketplace East. But the thing is, as I said, the looming shadow.
You're
There
across the
is
street from Chinatown.
right there's a very actually easy example of what has happened when this has been done. DC did that with the Wizards originally, and they were put into the Chinatown area, and Chinatown
You're right.
crumbled.
They're literally right fucking there.
And now they're not. Now they're now they're leaving. Uh,
Are
and
they?
but
I didn't know that.
I believe so. And they are leaving damage that can't be outdone. And what essentially what happened was, there is this element of going in and seeing these signs that you can't read, and like if you're not part of that culture, you don't understand it necessarily. It has great food, has great culture. The restaurants, the shops, the grocery stores, everything that is there is this amazing cultural hub. They actually have this really like cool siphoned coffee, like it's a slow drip coffee. It's so good. We went there for the first time recently, for Hannah's birthday. But like these places are put at risk because what happens then? What they saw in DC happen was what was once these signs that you couldn't read, and these like places that actually had cultural significance get replaced with some of your chain places. And like basically, okay, they put a capital
Oh,
one, and they just put the the lettering up, and it's actually there is no translation for that, so the lettering that's up there is actually bullshit to begin with. And I think it's so disingenuous because there's not a way to say, okay, we're going to put a rent freeze, like so that your rent can't be put up higher, that all these other things can't happen, because the whole idea is, well, all these properties are still owned by Chinatown, they're still owned by your population, and so therefore, no, we're not going to force you out and gentrify you because you own it. But that's disingenuous because you aren't protecting the people that are paying out. You're essentially saying, well, if you guys decide to gentrify yourself, that's not on us, but that's not what us as a country has perpetuated. That's not the American dream. The American dream is going to go for the highest dollar, and when that highest dollar is met, Chinatown is going to look nothing like what it is. And it was put there for a very specific reason, and it was to have a safe community for those people.
100%. And that really transitions nicely into I see we're running very late, but our
There.
final topic
Yes.
to just quickly hit on, because I don't have too much to say on it besides one very important point that I think is important with this Tulsa ruling that you brought up. And, you know, here's a community encroachment in a different way, in a very violent, different way for the time, but no one being brought to task about it, and someone trying to do something to just have the judicial system and the justice system just acknowledge, essentially, the fact through law. And that being struck down because the law that was cited shouldn't in the judges or in the court's eyes shouldn't extend through generations to
But it's
everybody.
not even generations because the people that were putting this motion into place were survivors.
Yeah.
Were survivors.
So my quick point on that to wrap up what I need to say is just the law and what's legal isn't always what's moral, and we have to remember that when we're talking about these things. And that's been the case, especially for Black people in this country. And this is just another example of that. Like, yes, it maybe the law that they cited and tried to push wasn't going to ever do that. That doesn't mean that what they're fighting for isn't the morally correct thing. It just isn't the legally right thing because our laws and what's morally right, a lot of that is left to conflict, as we see often.
It's left to con.
And that's just a reminder of that.
Yeah,
So
it's left to conf. It's left to that. It's left to. It's very subjective sometimes, and so like for this 9-member committee or Supreme Court of Oklahoma to essentially say like, oh, this extends way beyond. Just because you are adjacent to it doesn't mean that you are deserving of money or of compensation. I think is a low blow. I think what you saw was Elijah McClain recently, the medic who was put into jail originally for his death, wrongful death, in Colorado, right, is being released for good behavior, and that's a purely subjective like thing to say, right? Is to say like, oh yeah, you've been good, you're good to go. But like to then look at something that was displacing 300 people, thousands more affected, like killed 300, countless more, thousands more affected by this truly racist act, right? And then to say the last survivors have no right to any public nuisance violation, which I would argue anybody that was touched by it, even now, just by lineage, right, should be worthy of that based off of what it is. And we had a whole show on that, The Watchmen, whose reality was, it was a different reality. It wasn't like what we live through now, but it was a reality which the descendants got reparations for what happened, right? Notice how that show also got canceled. Um, I think honestly, no, that show was canceled. Lovecraft, the writer, just didn't want to do it. So I think Lovecraft, I mean, I think Watchmen actually got canceled. But what you're seeing here is, there was a moment in modern America to actually make up for it and not make up for it in what a lot of people say would be way too hard to justify. And by saying like anybody that is a descendant, fine, make that argument. But what we're talking about here is 3 individuals, 2 to 3 individuals that were actually touched by these events, and even then, the powers that be, and you can't take this above what happened, right? The powers that be still couldn't agree that, you know what, let's just fucking make things right. And I think that's very telling. And so when people love to say, oh, it doesn't exist still, racism doesn't exist, systemic racism, or like the stuff in the American justice system, just get fucking over it. I think it's absolute garbage because you were seeing a instance where they could have easily been like, okay, cool, here you guys go. For you guys, the small group, we got you. You couldn't do that. It's not it's way too big of an issue anymore because 3 people versus like however many of us exist in America. Fuck you. That's all I have to say about
yeah.
that.
So is it legal? Is it right? Not always the same. And that's it. But
this has been fun.
so yeah, good episode.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm surprised I didn't have to go to the bathroom when you did, and now I do. But yeah. Do you want to say anything to wrap it up?
As always, it was good talking to you, bud. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I will see you Sunday because we'll have something else to bring you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah, and until then.
Peace.